You're listening to the sweet sounds of the After Movie Diner. Support us at patreon.com/After Movie Diner. Or I'll punch you in the teats. Rate and review us on iTunes, Earthling. And now, here's your host, John Cross.
Well, welcome to this week on the Diner. Today, my guest is, as always, John Cross. Oh, no, wait, that's wrong, isn't it? Sorry, it's the other way around.
So, wow, on this episode, instead of just flagrantly interrupting me, you are taking over the hosting duties. That's fine, mate.
Well, it's about time. It's about time. Do you know what I mean? You had your fun. You had your go. Now it's my turn. You
are performing, one might say, a coup on the After Movie Diner.
Yes! Oh, how current.
Yeah.
How current.
I imagine that you're going to emerge from the kitchen where you're currently standing, wearing a large, horned, furry hat, babbling some right-wing bollocks.
Is it too early? Is it too early? I don't think it is too early, but I can't tell with the Americans. I can't tell if it's reading the room to joke about it.
Yeah, no, I'm joking about it. Fuck it, I don't care.
I feel like it's okay to joke about it, but I feel like other people think not, but I don't.
Listen, a dude wearing animal skins and all over body tattoos marched into the highest place of government and just kind of wandered about a bit and took some selfies. I mean,
I think to be fair, like the way I'm thinking about it, and I think it's just fair, is that if there had been any Democrat politicians in the building when they'd arrived, then they would have got beaten up. Do you know what I mean? They would have gone. It would have been messy. So I think the fact that there was nobody there doesn't necessarily mean that would have been the end of their intention.
Wait, you're saying that these guys would have been bold enough and brash enough to actually physically rough up a politician?
Yeah, I think so.
No.
Some of them hit coppers, didn't they? Anyway, let's not talk about it.
It is what it is. I think all I'm saying is, I know there was a lot of Civil War-like reactions on social medias, and all I'm saying is if there is a civil war, I think we can take them. I'm just saying, I think we can take them.
Listen, mate, I hate to tell you this, but you couldn't take anybody.
You couldn't
even take me.
One of most of them looked like friends of mine.
And you could take me. That's how crap we are. We couldn't even take each other out.
I could hit you with my VHS repeatedly till it hurt a bit.
You don't even have that many VHS anymore. That's the problem. You've only got 8 VHS.
That's not true. I've got about 50 VHS as we sit here.
50. Have you been at the thrift stores again?
I've been at the VHS stores. Yeah.
Now, let me ask you a question. Yeah. How many of those? Because there's a certain legitimacy maybe to some of them.
Jim Wallace is declaring legitimacy or otherwise. Carry on.
I don't know. I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm getting it. Can you get those VHSs on other formats?
Some, not all.
See, now the not all part, I'm with you, because I know that there are some you can't get on DVD or streaming or anything, and that's fair game. But if you've got Jurassic Park or whatever on VHS, then I feel like that's, I don't know, maybe there's something to it.
Oh, he's about to start throwing stuff. Listen, mate, we have few listeners as it is. Let's not start isolating some of them by going, well, movie fans that have VHS that you can buy on other formats. What's all that about, eh? Let's not start with that.
I was talking myself out of it.
As well you should, mate. But interestingly, the movie we're covering this week, you've teed it up beautifully. With
you think there's no method to my idiocy?
I started.
There is.
Can I just point out that we seamlessly went from ludicrously attired right-wing gobshites to VHS to the movie of this week seamlessly. seamlessly.
It was, mate. It was a joy to behold.
Because, and the reason why I say this is, apart from a few foreign DVDs knocking about, this is one of those that I think is predominantly still only available on VHS.
This cult classic with its built-in fan base.
Listen, it is a little bit of a rare and hidden. I'm not going to say gem, but I am going to bury the lead a little, and I am going to say that out of all the Idol movies that we've watched so far, this is my favourite one.
Yeah, I mean, again, the competition can barely be described as competition. Do you know what I mean?
No, but
it would be if it was an actual competition, you'd declare it a fix. Do you know what I mean? Such would be Missing Pieces' lead over.
I knew you weren't going to like it as much as me. I just knew it.
No. You're not. No, you got to hear me. I'm saying. Yeah. Right, to compare Missing Pieces to Burn Hollywood Burn, and I've even forgotten the name
Splitting
of it.
Heirs.
Splitting Heirs is like, that's just like, they're barely even movies, you know. Whereas Missing Pieces is a movie. No, I enjoyed Missing Pieces. I enjoyed it. Man.
Yeah, so did I. So we are talking about Missing Pieces on this episode of the outrageously bad Eric Film. Eric Film. Hello, I'm Eric Film. Hello, I'm Eric Film. Tonight on the Eric Film bad season. No, it's.
If we called it the Eric Films Idol season, I don't think, given the amount of effort that he puts into his choices,
yeah.
I don't think that's actually a bad title for it. Eric Films Idol season.
No, but so it's the outrageously bad Eric Idol film season. And as a disclaimer again, just in case anyone is thinking like, whoa, you know, why are you having to go at Eric Idol? He himself has declared these films bad, except Splitting Heirs. We've declared that one bad. But he declared this one bad. So without further ado, here is...
He declared this one bad. I'm sorry.
He did.
Oh, sorry. Is there a theme song?
There is.
Am I trampling on the theme song?
So okay, we've released 2 episodes.
Eric Film bad season because it spoils the theme.
I can't even hear what you're saying. You're cutting in and out. But we can't talk over each other. It doesn't work on the podcast with your headset scenario that you have set up.
Sorry.
But here is the theme tune. Well, it's the outrageously bad Eric Idle film season. Yeah, it's the outrageously bad Eric Idle film season. And in typical Idol fashion, I thought I'd start it with a song. Nobody asked me to, but I need to make more references to penises and dongs. And some thinly veiled innuendos about tits that some might think passes for wit and ingratiates me with the LA set, who are quick to embrace me and quick to forget that I've made some truly outrageously bad films for some reason. Well, here's the after movie diner back to remind you with the outrageously bad Eric Idle film season. It's the outrageously bad Eric Idle film season. It's the outrageously bad Eric Idle film season. Outrageously bad. Oh yeah, you gotta always look on the bright side of life, except during the outrageously bad Eric Idle film season. And this song has gone on far too long without mentioning my dong. Oh, something like that anyway. Boobs.
Okay.
Done. And what a lot of fun that theme tune was.
No, that's a great one. I still haven't heard it yet.
You haven't listened to the last 2 episodes. This week, Jim and I are going to be talking about the 1991 hidden, buried, rare, not often seen film Missing Pieces from writer-director Leonard Stern, starring Eric Idle, Robert Wuhl, Lauren Hutton, and recent Instagram sensation Leslie Jordan, and also SVU's Richard Belzer, also Homicide's Richard Belzer, and a couple of other people you probably recognize. Donald Gibb, for example, for all those 80s and 90s action fans out there. He's in this movie briefly, as is James Hong from Big Trouble in Little China. It's a knockabout.
And Thingamajig, Q from Star Trek: The Next Generation, whatever his name is.
Right. Yes. Who is that chappie? John
James,
Delancey.
John, yeah, I said, yeah.
John Delancey is also in this. So it's full of kind of comedians and New York character actors. It's a knockabout, mystery caper, road trip, thriller, comedy, slapstick, kind of New York sensibility, Jewish one-liners kind of thing. It's written, as I said, by a gentleman by the name of Leonard Stern, who's probably most famous for being one of the writers on Get Smart. Get Smart, which was obviously a seminal TV show back in the 60s that came out of the kind of Catskills comedian writing set of people like Mel Brooks and Sid Caesar. And I think this is one of his only movies. It's certainly his only directorial film, I think. He's done a couple of others, but they're mainly shorts and TV series. The only other one he did was Just You and Me, Kid, in 1979, starring George Burns and Brooke Shields, of all people. But yeah, this one has the unique comedy double act of Robert Wuhl and Eric Idle. And for anyone listening to this episode, I would like to announce that there is a Robert Wuhl interview that is up on our...
Get out of town.
Yeah.
Get out of town.
I asked...
With that news.
I asked Belzer, I asked Leslie Jordan. Everyone knows that I've asked Eric Idle, but none of them responded. Robert Wuhl, on the other hand, was like, sure, I'll chat about Missing Pieces. Why not? Because he seems like a positive, upbeat chappy, and I think he's just happy to have a conversation about it. So here is an excerpt from that interview where Robert talks about Missing Pieces. The full interview is available over on Booth Talk from the Aftermovie Diner. That is a separate podcast, so please go to one of your podcast platforms and subscribe to Booth Talk from the Aftermovie Diner. It should be available right next to the Aftermovie Diner podcast. Enjoy this clip from that interview now. Thank you. Thank you so much for doing this. Just a real pleasure to talk to you, and certainly thought that it would be interesting to talk about a film that I wonder if you've ever been asked about before, and that's Missing Pieces.
Have I ever? I think I've been asked once or twice. My sister saw it one time. Maybe somebody else saw it too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not much. No, well, and it kind of baffles me because I actually really like it. As a kid, I was a huge Monty Python fan, and that obviously extended to trying to pick up all their post-Python stuff as well. And that's how I came across it. It's obviously relatively obscure today, but I'm fascinated, therefore, about the story behind it, because whenever anything kind of, especially in this day and age of information everywhere, when there's not information about stuff, it just makes it all the more tantalizing. How did you end up working on the film?
It was post-Batman, and Aaron Russo, producer, who had produced The Rose, other films, he approached me and offered me the job, the idea of working with Eric Idle. And I obviously wanted to do that.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. I mean, that's I really didn't know that much about the script. I mean, it was basically, it was supposed to be like a Laurel and Hardy, Abbott and Costello type of thing. And that was, I don't remember much about it. I remember that, I don't remember much about the script. It was something about some missing, the guy who directed it, Lawrence Stern.
Leonard Stern, yeah.
Lovely man. Great guy. Terrific guy. He had done Get Smart. And he also was the creator, most importantly, of Mad Libs. I don't know. Are you familiar with Mad Libs? The old
I'm
stuff?
familiar with them. Yeah.
Yeah, that was him. He self-published it and made a fortune on that. So
wow, he invented that. I did not know that.
I believe he did. That fascinated me. I'm always fascinated by stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I didn't know much about. There was some terrific talent in the picture. I had a great time. I mean, Leonard was a lovely guy. Like I said, really gentleman. Again, I don't remember much about the one scene. I thought being fun. I only saw a rough cut of it. I don't think I've ever seen the finished product.
Okay.
Here and of course, what was great about it is meeting Eric and probably what I take away most about it is it started my relationship with Marvin Hamlish, who did the music. And we had a song, and I forgot what it was. It was sort of like High Hopes. It's a good
High
song.
Energy.
High Energy, whatever it is, yeah. So I like that. And I started a relationship with Marvin that continued. We worked together on a couple other projects and became very close friends. And so that was terrific. I loved the idea of working in New York. At the time, I wasn't living. I loved living in New York. At that, I have an apartment there now, but I liked that. There was one scene in a car. We were putting on seatbelts or something that I thought was pretty funny. The two of us did. I thought that was a good piece of physical comedy there.
It's he gets his car back from a garage in the city because they're about to drive out to LA. And he goes to put his seatbelt on and your seatbelt tightens. And then you go to put your seatbelt on and his seatbelt tightens. But the button to the scene is the funniest line because after you both eventually get your seatbelt on, I think you say something along the lines of, "Oh, he fixed the seatbelts then," and Eric says, "Yeah, they work much better than they used to," which is obviously the joke on the fact that they don't work at all. But no, there's some great little one-liners in there, and so Leonard, along with apparently creating Mad Libs, which I wasn't aware of, he had even worked on I think 2 of the later Abbott and Costello pictures back in the 50s. So he'd actually written stuff in this tradition before, and I wondered if that had come up or if that was even discussed on the set, or if you
I do not remember. To be honest with you, I know he did Get Smart. I think he worked on I Love Lucy for many years.
Okay. And as a writer, you guys are both writers. Obviously you've done a lot of writing, both for. I was great to find out that you had written some for, or certainly script supervised for the Police Squad series, but also wrote for Billy Crystal's now famous Oscar nights, which go down in history now as the thing you're trying to reach, right? The pinnacle you're trying to get to in terms of comedic award hosting. And so I wondered, and again, you may not remember, but I wondered if you and Leonard kind of bonded on, Eric is obviously this phenomenal writer from Python as well, whether you guys bonded more as writers or more as performers.
Eric, I was more, I would try to push Leonard and question Leonard about stuff. And Eric would constantly remind me, be an actor. Be an actor.
Oh, okay.
Be an actor.
Right.
And that was very good advice. Probably should have taken it better than I did. Aaron was a big figure, and Aaron could control Leonard. Leonard, that was the other thing. He could bully him around a bit. Leonard, like I said, is a great guy. He's a sweetheart of a guy. Old school, very old school. But funny. I mean, he was good. It was. Hey, I got an opportunity. Looking back on it, it was a great opportunity. I made a couple of bucks. Not many movies I got to co-star in. I got to work with Eric Idle. Got to know a little bit. I don't really know Eric that well. I haven't seen him that much since then. It's something that if you hadn't brought up, I wouldn't be thinking about much. Lauren Hutton was in the movie. I unfortunately forget the name of the woman who played my partner. I remember a couple of people from Get Smart were in it, and I would question him about things in the script, Leonard. I remember saying, "Wait a minute, what happened to this guy's gun? The bad guy's gun?" And Leonard said, "Well, he left it up there." And I said, "How is that possible?" and yeah, I'm sure Leonard. I might have been.
And do you remember how much? Yeah. You were maybe asking too many questions. You obviously come from a stand-up improv background.
Not improv.
Not improv. Oh, okay. Sorry, that must be a.
When I say improv, I was never part of an improv troupe. I mean, in acting classes, you do improv. I would come up with lines. I come from a writer's point of view, and from I started as a writer and an actor, not improv groups. I'm not a Second City guy. I'm really not. I mean, I've done okay in them, but that's and I appreciate them because they're character based, and that's really what it's about. So, but not improv, really.
Not improv. Okay, no, but I was just going on to say more or less, maybe as a writer, or maybe, but with Eric, how much of those lines were written and how much Leonard kind of insisted on you kind of going by the book, or how much freedom you guys had to maybe bat a few ideas back and forth.
I'm sure we had freedom. Leonard was good about that. I'm sure he was good about that. Leonard could recognize good comedy. I mean, remember, he does come from all those shows, where, like, whether you say Abbott and Costello, Lucy, Gets where you had funny people. So there obviously he could recognize contributions from other people and recognize when they're good and to use them. He did that. I mean, if you write for Abbott and Costello, if Abbott and Costello want to say something else, they're going to say something else.
Right, exactly.
But at the same time, if they could recognize something really well written, I mean, not much better piece of comedy ever written than Who's On First.
Right, exactly. And there's a little bit of that in this, just because I think the deceased foster father in this is called Chen Wu Hu, I think. And there's
there was a who, what, when, where, why, something like that. Yeah.
Right. Kind of joke in it. Obviously you became great friends with Marvin, as you said. Do you remember the recording session? I know that Eric Idle is, he's a big musical guy. He sings a lot. Obviously he wrote Spam a lot. Do you remember recording that song with him and what that was like in the studio?
Eric was not there when I recorded it. We recorded them separately.
Okay.
Yeah, but I do remember the recording session with Marvin because that was my first time with him, and I learned a lot, a whole lot. Yeah. And Eric sings better than I do. I can pass. Eric sings better.
You had the bravado. That's what I like. But there's a nice. It's surprising to me you weren't in the same room when you were doing it, because there's a wonderful kind of back and forth in the song.
My pal, alter ego, trouble seems to follow us wherever we go. When we're out of a jam, look out! Calamity. Your faith needs restoring. You're a bloody optimist, but never boring. Just when others say die, we kick it into high. 'Cause we've got high energy, and you bring out the beast in me. You're a pain that never ceases. You fill in the missing pieces. Woo!
And likewise on screen, the two of you, and again, I don't know whether you did a lot of work on this or whether it just came naturally between comedians, but the two of you on screen, the movie works, if it works at all, because of the... No, I mean that in a positive way. It does work.
I know you do.
Yeah. I love it. I'm a big fan of it. I love
my sister loves it. My sister loves it.
Comedy films. But the friendship between you and Eric in the movie is kind of what holds the whole thing together. In fact, if anything kind of is an odd choice, it's the introduction of the females, because it doesn't happen until really late in the second half of the movie, and you're already invested in this friendship. Not that Lauren Hutton and the actresses aren't fantastic, but the friendship is what grounds it, I think. And you guys are great.
I think you're probably right. Now, first of all, where did you see it?
I saw it on VHS back in the UK years ago. As I said, I used to be a mad post-Python collector. And in the days that VHS was both very popular, but also slowly being taken over by DVD, all these VHS pop-up stores, much like Halloween pop-up stores here in the US, because I'm now in New York. I've been in New York the last 12 years. But all these pop-up stores would open up, selling off kind of warehouse loads worth of VHS. And I was able to get Missing Pieces. I got Odd Job, which was a movie that Graham Chapman did that no one's ever heard of. I got a couple of others, like B movies with Bruce Campbell in it that I'm a big fan of. So, yeah, I kind of got them in these sort of warehouse dumps that they would stick in these weird VHS pop-up stores in Guildford, England, of all places. So that's how I came across it.
Yeah, I'm looking at I'm trying to find where could somebody watch this now. It says HBO video now. I'm just trying.
So what's weird, Robert, is we're doing an Eric Idle season as well as doing interviews. We also do a podcast and reviews and various other things from my website, aftermoviediner.com. And we're doing an Eric Idle season right now, which is where this movie came up and why I reached out to you and Eric to see if you wanted to talk about it. And within 5 days of us releasing our last episode, someone, and I don't know who, has uploaded Missing Pieces onto YouTube. So it is on YouTube now in 2 parts. It is there if you want to watch it.
I might do that one day. I mean, I generally don't. I'm just watching and seeing where it says we got 33% of Rotten Tomatoes, which is okay. A third of the people like it. So
I mean, I like it. I think it's right for rediscovery. I think it's up there with the kind of knockabout comedies. So I'm guessing then, in terms of the movie going into relative obscurity and only weirdos like me finding out about it, I guess you don't know. Yeah, no, I love it. I think it's awesome. But I guess you're not aware of kind of why it was kind of released and then forgotten about, or why it wasn't pushed more or anything like that. There's no kind of story behind that. You don't know.
I never got released. It was never released to theaters that I know of. I think it pretty much maybe a theater or two. I never remember it ever being released. I think it went straight to video.
Okay, so it's a straight to video kind of deal. And again, I don't think Eric Idle's been hugely complimentary about the movie, and I'm not quite sure why, because again, I've watched it 2 or 3 days ago and I love it. What are your feelings on it now? I know you don't like fully remember it, but sort of what are your feelings on it now? And are you intrigued enough by this conversation to go watch it again, I guess?
Usually my opinions stay the same when I go back. I remember the time with Eric. I enjoyed being with him. I don't think either of us thought the movie was going to be particularly good. It is amazing that, I'm looking at some of his reviews on people. People love it. I mean, here's one. It was 2002, an idiotic masterpiece.
That's a great description.
Well, masterpiece. Wow. It's something I got to do in my career, and I'm looking back. I should have been more thankful and fortunate. I guess maybe I was more consumed with making sure, hey, it's the first time I'm above the title in a movie, and I'm with Eric. Yeah. I want it to succeed. You really do. It's a big thing, and so you're frustrated when it isn't. And maybe I was frustrated. Eric is a good guy. He's a terrific guy. I have nothing but wonderful things to say about him.
And obviously people like sort of Richard Belzer, who I know was obviously a stand-up as well, and there's a lot of New York comedic character actors in there. Did you bring any of those guys in? Did you know those guys?
Well, I was Russo. That was all Aaron Russo.
Nice. Okay. And you can hear the rest of that interview where we talk about Batman and Good Morning Vietnam and a lot of other things with Robert Wuhl over at Booth Talk from the After Movie Diner or on aftermoviediner.com/interviews. So now we're going back to the main podcast after a few annoying fucking adverts. Thank you.
Like, even though it's very up and down, the movie, it was clearly... And I could be wrong, but it looked like they had a lot of fun making it, right? It looked like it was a lot of it was on the hoof, and it did seem a bit like they were making it up as they went along. And that's why some bits I think are pretty funny, and some bits don't, but they're just like trying lots of things, and some work and some land and some don't. So it seems like it would have been a fun film to make.
Yeah, I think that too. And I think that what is nice about this, and I kind of want to get into kind of the performances of the two of them, but what's nice about it is that their energies work very well together. It's sort of interesting because Robert Wuhl plays the essentially the more negative of the pair, and Eric Idle's meant to play the eternal optimist. And it's an interesting piece of casting because you kind of feel from their energies that Robert Wuhl is probably way more optimistic in real life.
Yeah, that's true. It's very odd because like Idle, the way Idle works and the way he reacts to things is all very fatalistic. You know, that's his thing. And the idea of him being optimistic is it actually works.
I think it does work. And I think that the only thing that I think the thing that gives its uneven quality, because I know what you're talking about there, is probably just the budget and the fact that they had to kind of film it on the hoof. I can't imagine that they had millions and millions of dollars to put the thing together. But the other thing is, as this guy, Leonard Stern, has been, a writer since, I think, the end of the 50s, there is that thing of certain sensibilities and certain jokes. In fact, he wrote some early Abbott and Costello stuff. So, yeah, he's been around since the early 50s, actually. No, but the reason I bring it up is that it feels to me that the very verbal, like I say, Catskills comedian, New York style one-liner comedy that, to be fair, Robert Wuhl handles mostly in the movie, that still plays in 1990. Like, that still works as a kind of patois, right?
Eric gets a couple of good gags, and the one about him goes into the bathroom and there's loads of pills in there. And he goes, I need them to sleep. And Eric goes, what do you do? Count them? And that was a really good joke.
Right.
Really, really good joke, and it lands really well. And there's even though it's like, it's obvious, the only reason that they have, like, can they have an aspirin in the scene before? And the only reason that Eric Idle has, like, I've got a tension headache coming on. And the only reason they go to the bathroom and there's loads of pills in there. All of these things, like, I don't know how much movie time and setup and effort goes in, but it all goes into that one joke, and it's never made again, and they never talk about headaches or illness. No, it's not like a character thing. It's only there for that line, and I think that's wonderful.
But it is wonderful. But also, if the setup was slow and turgid, then I would agree it would be a problem. What I love about it,
such a great opening. It's got a brilliant opening.
Is the pacing is so nice and funny, and what it means. So nice and fast, and what that means is that if a joke doesn't land, don't worry, there'll be another joke coming along soon. And actually, sort of in terms of the verbal wit, the closest you kind of can make the comparison to is something like a Woody Allen. It has that kind of.
Eric Idle has a very like nebbish vibe all the way through the movie.
Right. I think what's funny is it's also combined with a lot of slapstick. So slapstick is the other predominant humor in it, along with, as I say, the kind of New York verbal humor. And while the slapstick, sometimes works, sometimes doesn't, I think that's actually more down to the fact that I don't know how deft physical comedians these guys are. I mean, Robert Wuhl certainly has a looseness about him that works well.
People has a certain kind of there's a certain gangliness, which I didn't notice until this movie. I've never thought of Idle as a. There's a bit of it in Splitting Heirs when he's like dressed smart. His arms are a bit weird and he's a bit gangly and a bit of an odd looking bloke, actually. But I've never thought of him that way. But in this movie, up against
Moranis, he kind of looks ganglier because Moranis is obviously very short.
I suppose so, yeah. But you know what I mean? In this one, the way he runs and the way he walks and the way they dress him, they're definitely they're not making him out to be like a distinguished English gentleman, especially with whatever the hell is going on with his accent, which is all over the place. In another like delightfully entertaining
Right.
It's a shit.
But no, you think about the setup of the sequence in the bathroom, right, where he has the water pick going and the phone going and all that going on at once. He does it very well. I'm not about to say that he doesn't try his damned hardest to make that scene work, but there would be, like, if you think of Steve Martin doing that scene, for example, there would be a lot more comedic physicality to it, or a Peter Sellers, there would be a lot more comedic physicality to it. And Eric Idle...
No, you're right, because actually the funniest bits in that sequence particularly are the bits when he's matter of fact, when he just puts it in the pocket, or he puts the phone in the toilet for no reason, and it's just the way he does it in quite a matter of fact way. Those two bits of the scene really land. Other than that, you're right, it's a bit laboured, which it wouldn't be if it was like a Steve Martin or somebody. But those two bits land really nicely.
Yeah,
so it makes it work. And that's what I kind of feel like the whole film is like that they're letting them fuck around with it a bit, and they just like if it doesn't work, like you say, if it doesn't work, there'll be another bit along in a minute. That's what's great about the opening, right? The opening sets it up because bits of the opening are really, really funny and bits are a bit laboured and don't quite work. But it happens so quickly. Idle and Wuhl running, from different bits of New York towards the same place, and you don't know how they're related or anything. It just sets the tone for the movie. It's just like, this is going to be breezy, it's going to be fast, bits of it are going to make you laugh. Don't worry if a bit of it doesn't, because there'll be another bit along soon enough. Yeah,
it definitely slows down and becomes a little less interesting once they get to Los Angeles, which is sort of the second to third act of the movie.
Yeah, it's almost a bit of a shame that they didn't shorten the New York bit, shorten the LA bit, and stretch out the road trip bit, which I feel like I was kind of looking forward to. I quite like to see these two on the road and getting into scrapes and whatnot. But I thought in a kind of a Bing Crosby and Bob Hope.
Bing Crosby and Bob Hope, the road movies.
Yeah, like that kind of a vibe. I was kind of looking forward to that, and I thought it was a bit of a shame that they. And don't get me wrong, like the thought of fuck it, we'll just like put a duet between the two characters singing about what their characters in the movie are over the top of a montage of them driving, which again had some really funny bits in it. Like the Idle falling asleep on the electric window thing was funny. Them falling out of the car was funny, but it did seem like a bit of a shame because, like you say, once they got to New York and it was like, oh, we've got to get a magic dagger, but it's in a clock.
You mean once they got to Los Angeles?
That's Los Angeles. Sorry, yeah. You know what I mean? And all that stuff with their I know it's all like a MacGuffin, but I felt like it was a bit. If it's just a MacGuffin, then why make it like complicated? Why make it a mystery about like where's the clock and the dagger? And like I didn't give a shit about any of that, and I would far rather have had an extra half hour of them on the road, and they get to Los Angeles, and then there's a bit of trouble, and they get into a bit of a scrape or whatever, and then they end up with the dagger and live happily ever after. Brilliant, But anyway,
yeah. Although I have to say, because yes, it ramps up to what I would call a more traditional 80s or 90s comedy ending, which is where you kind of somehow blend comedy with action. Like when you think about, Who's Harry Crumb or, any of those 80s and 90s comedies. And to be honest, off the top of my head right now at 11 o'clock, and I can't think. But there are plenty of 80s, 90s comedies that skirt the, comedy, mystery, action genres. And normally build to some kind of slapstick and or full-blown action finale. And I have to say, considering the knockabout nature of it, considering the scrappy nature of it, considering the budget, whatever, because the pacing and the editing and the general, like, what's happening now? Oh, okay, we're over here. Oh, what's happening now? Oh, we're over here now. Oh, someone's got shot. Oh, we're running out of here. Because of that kind of nature of it, first of all, it never bores you, and secondly, they weirdly pull it off. Like they weirdly,
no, they do. Like at the bit at the end where the joke is, he's just like guessing who it might be, and then that character walks in with a gun, and the character goes, "No, it's not him," so we don't have to be worried about him. And then they like knock the gun out of the hand, and then another character comes in after, like Wuhl goes, "Well, it must have been him," and then another guy goes, "No, it was him." That was that whole sequence was really quick. Really funny. Actually, like, oh, is it him? Like, it was a really neat way of wrapping up a whodunit by, like, having one character guess and then, like, their guess coming in. That whole setup was really, really clever, and I liked that a lot.
I would have to say the thing that is one plot line too many is the romantic subplot with the two women.
That was so weird because it was also a non-plot.
Right.
Because it was like, why do you not like her? And why does she like you? And you divorced her, but for no reason. It was very odd.
It was odd. And I think the shame of it for me is that the sweetheart of this movie, if it has a sweetheart, is the two guys. It is the interplay between Idol and Wuhl. And you kind of love the fact, like at the beginning of the movie, so Idol and Wuhl play Wendell and
we talked about the whole movie without even once talking about the plot. I'm sorry.
Play Wendell and Lou.
I blame myself, mate. I just want you to know I blame myself.
It's fine, dude. It's all good. I blame you as well. So, sort of, Wendell is the eternal optimist who has just been fired from his greeting card job because he came up with the idea of funny bereavement cards, which I actually think is a pretty great idea. And Robert Wuhl is Lou Wimpole, who is a cellist.
As well, Wendell Dickens and Lou Wimpole. These are terrific names for lead characters.
Yeah, right off the bat, I'm already entertained by them. He is a cellist who's trying to get to play with the New York Philharmonic. And the whole opening sequence is them trying to get to his audition, which he bungles spectacularly. But what is immediately apparent from the get-go is their friendship and they're kind of, and they're not even like mismatched necessarily. You understand why these two guys are friends, but you also understand why no one else would be friends with them. Like they work together, but they don't need like a bunch of people around them.
That's true.
And what's, and I'm immediately a sucker for that. I'm immediately a sucker for like a good friendship pairing where the friendship itself does, like, at no point does the movie feel like it needs to put the friendship at jeopardy. Like they don't need to be at odds with each other or whatever. And there's no needless conflict. The conflict is all external. The unity of the two of them is what's paramount. And that's why when they introduce the ladies later on when they get to Los Angeles, you understand why they do it just because of film convention. But at the same time, you kind of go, you don't really need any of that. Like just get them to LA and have them do more slapstick in various different scenarios until they get the dagger and the movie. You know what I mean? The fact that they end up with two women almost to me spoils it, because I'm like, oh, I was kind of looking forward to them living together and being, a mad odd couple in an apartment together. I don't need two women involved. And again, nothing against the women who are perfectly fine in the movie. Just it's one thing too much. So basically, interestingly enough, Eric Idle is playing another orphan after our discussion last week about...
That's true, yeah, which presumably wasn't his suggestion or anything, because it's reasonably key to the plot.
And the joke at the beginning is that he's had lots of foster parents, but rather than being moved around lots of foster parents, they've all died while he's been around them in various ridiculous ways, which is another great scene in the lawyer's office, played by Leslie Jordan, where he's going through how they all ridiculously died. I especially like Mr. and Mrs. Maserati, who were killed by a Maserati, funnily enough, which is like an obvious joke, but also kind of he pulls it off pretty well. One of his foster parents was an Asian gentleman by the name of Chen Yu-hu. And they almost evolve into the who's on first gag, but luckily keep that to a minimum. But Chen Yu, who couldn't adopt him because he was gay at the time, because he was gay and that wasn't allowed at the time, but did love him, and Wendell loved him back, and they were this great father-son thing. And he has now died in mysterious circumstances because Wendell finds out that he was drunk at the wheel of a car, which is something that he would never have done because he wasn't a drinker, and or a driver. And he has been bequeathed a riddle, which sets them on a path of
which I also like that
mad cappery.
But literally none of that makes any sense. Why he would send him a riddle through a lawyer to find a dagger in a clock that he sold to a lady, and he did all this before being like killed by surprise by somebody who wanted a dagger. Like, why was that? Like, not that it matters, it doesn't matter in the least. It's all just a pile of nonsense, and I quite like that too. It's like people getting murdered, driving cars off cliffs, shonky post-mortems, it's all just like throw it all together and who gives a shit. And I quite liked the energy of that, but it was all. But the only thing I would say, right, against all that, I did quite like that they obviously didn't give a shit about any of it, which does in itself lend a certain jaunty charm to all the proceedings. Like, who cares,
I don't know. It has 750% more plot than the last two movies we've watched.
Well, no, that's true. But what I'm saying is, yes, that's true. What I'm saying is there's zero payoff except, like, all he's interested in doing is setting up jokes, which you can't help but admire. So, but sometimes a lot of the satisfaction of watching a movie, and I think that's why, it slows quite badly, as you say, in like the last third, is that normally where, a plot strands start coming together, or, you get sort of drawn into their lives a little bit, and, you start caring about the stakes or whatever. The things that carries you through to the end of the movie just don't exist here. They're just not there. It's just like, come on, we've got to get to the next bit where there's going to be some more people falling over. And there was a bit in the movie where after about an hour, I thought, I've had an hour of non-stop banter and falling over, where only about a third of it is landing, is about my limit. I could use a break before they get back to it, a bit later on. And it wasn't that it stopped happening. It was just, I stopped thinking it was quite as funny for about 20 minutes. You know what I mean? I just sort of had a bit of me that had enough.
I agree with you. And I think that as I said, the saggy pudding part of the movie is, when they get to Los Angeles and they have to get to that ending sequence. There are two good sequences at the latter half of the movie. One is in the asylum/morgue with the German doctor, where he keeps asking questions and has to keep going back to the filing cabinet. And along the way, he keeps where Robert Wuhl gets, injected with something, and he's like, don't worry, it just means you can't get pregnant for 3 months or whatever it is. And various like...
You come in and memes
I'm
it. It's like a little sorry, not going to be pregnant for a year. There's
some madcap stuff in that sequence. I do like the fact that the dichotomy between Lou and Harudnik, played by Donald Gibb, who's one of the most outrageous looking people on the planet, with his one wonky eye and his huge hair. The fact that Donald Gibb was like a conductor for like this orchestra, but also a psychopath, and they happen to know each other, and like Robert Wuhl can't decide how to play that, like, and I love the way he does it, where he can't decide whether he's really happy to see him, but at the same time he's a psychopath. Which I thought was really nice. So that whole sequence I'm a big fan of.
It didn't ever turn. What was nice, it never turned when you're expecting him to like start being a psycho, we've humored him enough and now he's a psycho, we're going to have to run away. All the way through, he behaves like somebody who was like a more successful musician than Robert Wuhl, but got a bad review, so he murdered the critic, and now now he's in prison for it. But it's all like catching up, matter of fact. There's obviously incredibly weird energy, like you say, underneath all of it, because he is an escaped psychopath and they are terrified of him. But at no point does that ever come to pass. Do you know what I mean? No. Like, he's just not interested in, and that, again, that's a purely random decision. There's no rhyme or reason to not doing that scene, of having that scene turn, like, where they would run away and they get, like, there's laughs to be had there where they run away from the guy, or there's some more falling over to be had there or whatever. But for whatever reason, the guy's just not interested, so he carries on with the scene and then moves on to the next thing. And it's difficult not to be a little bit charmed, right? To be a little bit charmed by I couldn't give a shit what other people would do in this situation. That doesn't interest me, so I'm moving on. You know?
Yeah, but the only other sequence that works towards the end of the movie and doesn't work as well as the sequence we just described is the very end with, like you say, that room where sort of all the people come together and it doesn't make a lot of sense, but then it goes to kind of
I quite like that. I quite like that joke, even though it's not...
no, I'm saying that scene works. That's the other scene that works in the Los Angeles portion.
I almost prefer it to the... This is a weird one, right? Because... You're right. The scene in the hospital is funnier, right? There's more jokes that land in that scene, and there's more laughs there. But for some reason, I found myself preferring or really enjoying that final scene, just because it was so odd, and there was this conceit that they were committed to. It was such a strange conceit to end a murder mystery with that idea, and they were totally committed to it all the way through, and it went exactly the way they wanted it to. And even though it doesn't quite land, it's a completely original spin on that,
denouement,
unmasking the murderer thing, that I couldn't help but just really it's so. I've seen that scene so many times, and to see it done in a completely different way, completely unique, and all they're trying to do is play it for laughs. You can't help but be. It's got that vaudeville thing to it, right? That show must go on. Like, don't worry, like you say, there'll be another laugh along in a minute. There's definitely the whole thing is the show must go on. And we're going to have fun doing it.
And I think that like I say, there's two things that fully hamper the movie. One is there are certainly jokes or sensibilities in it that are certainly towards the more slapstick, but also. Just in general, especially some of the kind of more, the more sort of boob-centric or Benny Hill style stuff. Not that there's a lot of it, but there's some of it that is a little outdated even for the 90s. And the other bit is...
Yeah, there's like two sequences where the director clearly liked black suspenders, right? He's clearly a big fan of that, because there's two completely... See, when Eric Idle falls through the top of a limo and ends up with a woman climbing on top of him, like upside down with a skirt down and like the suspenders being flashed. They go, well, how did that even happen? And then later on in the movie, Robert Wuhl trips over a dog, and then somehow the woman's skirt falls off, and it's black suspenders, and you're thinking, well, we know what he liked. We know what the director was keen on.
although what's impressive about the dog... Yeah, although what's impressive about the dog sequence is that the dog does genuinely mount Robert Wuhl.
Yeah, I know. They must have... I was thinking that while it was happening. I was thinking, I wonder if that was just a happy accident of the filming, that the way they wanted...
I'm not sure that I would want a big dog.
No, I was a bit worried about that, but it was a very odd... But again, sort of charming, just sort of, like you say, a bit of Benny Hill nonsense that... was like, they want a bit of sex in the movie. I'll give them sex. It was such a 50s, it's such a 1950s idea of raunchy. Suspenders,
But that's the thing, and the thing that I kept coming back to time and time again, because it was something that I think you were saying last week about Splitting Hairs, but I actually think rings even more so that for Missing Pieces, is that it's completely good-natured. Like, it has a really good nature and good heart to the center of the movie. Like, there's I almost don't understand. I mean, I understand why it's not some people's cup of tea. I totally understand that. I just don't understand how you could out and out not like it, because it's only coming from a goofy place of wanting to make you laugh, and it's
very goofy. But it's got that. It has a very the whole Abbott Costello thing makes so much sense, and the nebbishness of Idle. It has a very vaudevillian 1950s knockabout, just keep them laughing. There's a professionalism to the idea of it's up to us to pack as many jokes in as we possibly can. That's the professional thing to do here, is to try and be as funny as we possibly can.
And it features one of my favorite comedic / action sequences, which is the brilliant idea of them getting hooked onto the bumper of a getaway car, which is actually like legitimately good sight gag.
And especially like when they get unhooked, but they're still hiding and just traveling down the road talking to each other. It was like nothing I've seen before, and again, totally works as a joke, and it doesn't put anybody in any like immediate peril. It's just, I don't know. It was great. It was,
yeah, and I think here's another good example of like a movie like this is something like a Jumping Jack Flash, which you either like Jumping Jack Flash and were of an age when Jumping Jack Flash was in your video stores and you watched it and it's your favorite Whoopi Goldberg movie, or you're not. Like, there are some people who watch those kind of knockabout 80s 90s comedies and don't like them, or think they're passé, or don't find them funny or whatever. And then there's people like myself who have such a soft spot for them. And I would totally put, there's another movie which we covered on our Gene Hackman New Year's Eve show called Loose Cannons, which is...
do you remember our friend Milborough?
Yeah.
So our friend Milborough, who...
Cy Milborough, yeah.
Yeah, Cy Milborough, God love him. And he was always a bit absent-minded. And he recorded Loose Cannons on VHS, like off telly one day, I guess. And then when it came to him, he was probably distracted by a bee or whatever. And then when it came to writing down the title of the movie, he couldn't remember. But he knew it was like, and instead of thinking like, because Loose Cannons is like, that's a phrase, right? So instead of thinking of like another phrase that's similar to that, I can't think of one right now, but instead he went with Stray Guns. And you go, yes, Cy, yes, Milborough, so close. At both counts, like each word is unbelievably close. So how did you not get to Loose Cannons?
Yeah, well, it's
not. This is Stray Guns. That sounds right. Come on, you're so close. One more step and you'll get to Loose Cannons. I promise.
It's like Love and a Cello versus Romance and a Double Bass.
But to get to, it's like, it reminds me. Do you remember that show?
But no, that's genius. To go from Loose Cannons and go, what's it called again? Stray Guns? That'll work.
Guns, and then that'll do. And I don't need to do any more thinking. There's nowhere else to go here. It's so what it reminds me of. You remember that show that was on Sunday afternoons, and
that's
when you
amazing.
Like, I Have No Life, called Catchphrase.
Yes.
Catchphrase. See what you see. If you see it, say it. And
with
it would have,
Roy Walker.
Roy Walker. And you'd have like things on a screen.
Yeah.
And you'd kind of like guess what the things on the screen were, like what the catchphrase was.
It was charades.
But basically charades.
Pictionary.
Like very cheesy computer-generated imagery from the 90s.
Pictionary. Right.
And it was... And what it was, like, the phrase was surfing the net, right?
Right.
This is where we... But that was the catchphrase, was surfing the net. That's what this guy had to guess, right? And there's a robot, right? It's so fucking lazy, the show. There's a robot on a surfboard, right? Surfing. On the waves, right? On the waves is the massive word net, right? That's what's on the screen.
Oh, wait, so they didn't even do...
No, they didn't know. They didn't even do an actual net. They just had the word net, right?
Wow. Okay.
The guy's like, "Here you go for the grand prize. What's the clue? What's the catchphrase? Tell us the catchphrase. Say what you see. If you see it, say it." And the guy goes, "Surfing the, no. Surfing the, no. Surfing the, no. I'm sorry, I don't know. Just say the word. There's only one word on the screen. Say the fucking word. Just that, and it's over." So that's just what it's always tickled me that sometimes just say the word, go that extra mile.
Just go that extra mile. But
Loose Guns to fucking hell. Stray Guns to Loose Cannons.
Yes.
Take that step. Take that bold step.
That bold step. Just say the word. Say what you see.
Make Roy Walker smile. That's what it's all about.
Well, that's what it's all about. I love to make Roy Walker smile. But such a random diversion. But no, there was some of these movies that like I say, they cross the kind of action comedy, whatever. They're normally a double act or a solo act. You've got, sometimes they go a little mystical with something like a Golden Child, sometimes they're whatever. But there's a whole bunch of them at the end of the 80s, early 90s.
Golden Child, you're right. There's a whole bunch. And we used to love them. There must have been like a mid late 80s kind of boom when we were between like 10 and like 13, 14.
Yeah.
And that's, they were all like that. And they were very, like exactly like you say, they were very good natured, very breezy. They had like a story, so you were hooked in. It wasn't just like we will make you laugh. It was funny people being involved in like in an adventure like that. And that's what those movies were,
And look, they're all an extension of, Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein or whatever, and then later on something like the Pink Panther series, because what you do is you take a well-known genre, i.e. detective film or action movie or whatever it is, and you just put comedians in it and go kind of, yes, riff on the genre, but also be in the genre. You know what I mean? Like Fletch is a legitimately good detective story / action movie, but it has an incredibly comedic central character with lots of like slapstick dress up and so on. But the actual like plot of Fletch is, nicely thought out and well contained. And yes, no one's going to say that the plot of Missing Pieces is, well thought out or nicely contained, but it is enough of a MacGuffin. It's enough of a MacGuffin that any of like the Indiana Jones films have a MacGuffin. Like it's enough of a MacGuffin that everyone, what does everyone want? They want the dagger. Where's the dagger? Well, the only person who kind of knows where the dagger is has a riddle. Do we know what the riddle is? No, not yet, but everyone's going to find out. And everyone's chasing the same thing. And there's going to be people trying to bump you off along the way. And there's going to be a road trip. And you're going to sing a song. And someone's going to fall over. And her skirt's going to fall off. And whoops, mummy. And, and then we're going to end with a bit of an action sequence. And then at the end, everyone's happy and all together again. And to me, I just find that utterly charming. And while, if you're, and I legitimately think if you're a fan of, Who's Harry Crumb and Jumping Jack Flash and Loose Cannons, although that's another rare one similar to this one, but Golden Child or any of those, all of which are perfectly decent, none of which I would say are like 10 out of 10, but they're all, well, I mean, Who's Harry Crumb maybe, but like all
Who's
the
Harry
others...
Crumb is nearly perfect.
All the others I would give like a nice solid 7.5 out of 10. Like they're perfectly good.
To be fair though, and I think that there's, because listen, I'm in total agreement with you here and I'm not arguing, but I would say the thing about The Golden Child and Who's Harry Crumb and Stray Guns.
Stray Guns. Forever called Stray Guns now.
They all have central plots and storylines that hang together that are in their own right entertaining. Now, if you were to watch those films without those funny people in them, you would still be watching a movie. And
I don't know that Loose Cannons does. Loose Cannons is involved a porn tape that has Eva Braun in it.
Listen, I don't think I've seen it since it was called Stray Guns.
Okay.
But I would say that
I don't know. I think you need to rewatch them to realize just how shaky some of the plots are.
I'm saying, but this is very much like we need a movie as an excuse to have some slapstick and some silly one-liners and have a good old like. It seems to me to be far closer to that Bob Hope, Bing Crosby kind of a thing, but with a certain kind of breezy.
All I'm saying, and by the way, this is no, because I actually think Eric Idle's really good in the movie, and I think Robert Wuhl is really good in the movie.
They're both, it's easily, outside of Python, like the best thing I've seen Idle do.
They're both very good in the movie, but I'm just saying, if this was, I don't know, off the top of my head, Steve Martin and Dan Aykroyd or whatever, and I'm just picking a pair from like Saturday Night Live, if it was Steve Martin and Dan Aykroyd, would it be the Steve Martin, Dan Aykroyd movie everyone remembers? No. But would it be like second tier Steve Martin, Dan Aykroyd? Yeah, totally. Like completely. Is it Man with Two Brains jerk level? No. But it would be like the secondary tier, which weirdly, Who's Harry Crumb, when people talk about John Candy, when most people talk about John Candy, Who's Harry Crumb is not their go-to. You know what I mean? Like Uncle Buck and others are more their go-to. For me, though, Who's Harry Crumb Crumb is the beans. For everyone else, it's kind of a second tier John Candy. But for me, it's the beans. And it's like Tom Hanks and Volunteers. It's like most people, when they think of Tom Hanks in the 80s, they think of Turner and Hooch and Big. I think of The Burbs and I think of Volunteers. And for me, Missing Pieces perfectly fits in with what everyone else would consider second tier, but for me has a much warmer place in my heart. And I think if you had, a Tom Hanks, John Candy, Steve Martin, Dan Aykroyd, some kind of pairing that was more popular than Idle and Wool, I think this movie would at least still be known. I think that's a shame because I think Idle and Wool are really good in it, but I think that their names in 1991 were not enough to, move this movie into, like I say, kind of a second tier, comedic gem, like a V8, like a good rental. You know what I mean? Like their names just didn't make this a good rental.
It does. Like I think it suffers from it casts two funny guys with who because like that's what like it seems to me like what the two of them have are really good instincts, like comic instincts, like in the moment, right? They're clearly like making a lot of choices in the moment. Some of them come off and some of them don't, but enough of them come off that I can see why he cast the two of them. And because, as you say, they have this really interesting energy. And you can believe, like, it's not often that you put two actors together and you believe they've been friends for years. You know what I mean? Like Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau in The Odd Couple, like, you believe they've been friends for years, right? And to a certain extent, like, not enough movies together, that is true. But there's still that feeling of, certain actors' energy together, you believe them as friends, and it doesn't always work. And in this case, like you say, you definitely believe that they are friends. And I really like that description you made of, like, you can see why they're friends with each other, but why also no one else would be friends with them. Like, that's a really good description of who they are. And so, yeah, it's that. I agree. I know exactly what you're saying, and I would agree with you. But I do think that a Dan Aykroyd. Here's the thing, right? A Dan Aykroyd and a Let's take your example, right? And it's Dan Aykroyd and Steve Martin. There's no way that Dan Aykroyd and Steve Martin let this movie go the way that it does, right? Dan Aykroyd and Steve Martin, like, Dan Aykroyd would do a draft of the script, right? Steve Martin would get somebody in to, like, knock up, you know what I mean, and tighten it up a bit, give it a bit more of a plot. You know what I mean? Like, drag it a bit more kicking and screaming into the 80s so that it does have a bit more of a golden child. Like, it would be a magic fucking dagger or, I don't know, something, right? But like...
it'd be a dagger that UFOs left here for ghosts to find or something.
Yeah. But like the same, like with Real Men's a good example, right? Ritter and Belushi are not big enough to push around what is a weird script. But I bet if it had been Aykroyd and... Murray, then they would have pushed it around and they would have got rid of most of the things that we really love about Real Men. Because I
was just about to bring up Real Men.
Right? But do you see what I mean? Like, as in, neither Idle or Wool have the clout to like start throwing their weight around. Like, this is going to damage my career. This is too weird. Both of them are like. Idle's like, I don't care. I'll give it a go, sure. And Robert Wuhl's, again, clearly, like, they're both like, yeah, we'll give it a go. This bloke's written for Abbott and Costello. He's got a very clear idea of what's funny. He thinks we're going to be good together. Let's get together and make a movie. And then that's what they do. And it's impossible not to be charmed by the slightly, now that I think about it, like Roxburgh, Farley-esque kind of nature of proceedings, like that kind of knockabout. You know what I mean? That kind of knockabout energy of it. And I feel like had it been the people that you're talking about, I think it would have been a more polished, more professional thing where a lot of I expect some of the stronger gags would have remained intact, but that slightly anarchic energy of it would be gone. And that would be a bit of a shame, I think, because there's enough Who's Harry Crumbs and Jumping Jack Flashes in the world. There's not that many... such loose, it's louche is what it is, isn't it? It's a very louche movie, even though it's, quite knockabout. Louche knockabout. They've invented a new genre, louche knockabout.
I don't know how louche it is, but it's loose. It's stray. Loose. Let's say it's stray. Yeah, it's stray knockabout. But no, I mean, you're right to some extent. I also think that... again, like the reason why I brought up Golden Child and Who's Harry Crumb and stuff like that, just to be clear, is like those are not again, those are not the movies that people think about. Like when you think about John Candy, it's normally like Trains, Planes and Automobiles or Uncle Buck or something with a bit more polish. But the thing I like about Who's Harry Crumb is it is loose and knockabout. Yes, there's more.
No, that's true. That's fair. That's fair. I know what you're saying. That's fair.
Yes, there's more like strong gags in it, potentially, but it's that loose knockabout, freewheeling. 1 minute he's dressed up as this guy doing a funny voice, next minute he's doing that. Gags that don't make any physical sense, like him, revolving around on the ceiling fan, but are also hilarious. Like there's stuff like that. And I just think the Missing Pieces fits in there. And the only point I was trying to make was that not that they're not great, but if this had someone who is a little better known from the 80s in it, it may have not completely disappeared into obscurity. And like be aware that this movie, like on IMDb, it only has 223 star ratings on it, right? Which is for IMDb is very, 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 very low. On Letterboxd, where even the rarest of movies that I know about have multiple reviews, Missing Pieces has one other review. So like be aware that this is like not a well-known movie by anybody's standards at all. And all I'm saying is it deserves to be. If you were a child of the late 80s, early 90s, it deserves a visit, is what I'm saying. It deserves some of your time. And just to bring it up, a very, very weird coincidence happened. And that is, this movie was not available anywhere. I couldn't find it anywhere. No one had uploaded it on YouTube or anything like that. I got a friend of mine to send me a digital copy that looks probably like a VHS rip, because like I say, there aren't really DVDs of this movie out there, except in foreign territories. Within 2 or 3 days of us talking about this movie and me getting that file, it appeared on YouTube in 2 parts within the last few days on a user that was brand new. It was a brand new user that had uploaded 2 films, this movie and Bullseye, which you mentioned. Didn't you mention Bullseye in the last podcast?
I mentioned Bullseye. Yeah, because it was we talked about what was Winners, the Chris Rea one, Michael Winners,
Parting Shots.
Parting Shots,
yeah.
And that's what was the Bullseye. So it wasn't even like we went from Splitting Hairs to Parting Shots to Bullseye. And there's zero connection between Bullseye. And in fact, I think outside of whoever this Blake's brain is, nobody else in the history of anything has like gone from Missing Pieces to Bullseye and gone, that's it. Those are the 2. Those are my choices. Do you know what I mean? It's so weird.
It's so odd because to me, they are both like very rare movies. Even Bullseye, even with Winner and Caine and Roger Moore, that is not a well-known movie.
I mean, sorry, I feel like Michael Caine is going to be a bit miffed that when you listed like the big names that he came second behind Michael Winner.
Only because you just said Winner.
Michael Caine. You go, whoa, we're starting with Winner. All right, bold.
Well, you just mentioned Winner, so that's what was on my head. That was on my mind.
Yeah, that was on your head. I get it, mate. On your head, be it.
And they were uploaded basically right after our podcast went live. So that's, to me, that's weird. But how about this for a meta film idea? You and me are mismatched friends with a knockabout sense of humor who go on a mystery hunt road trip to see who behind Trashcan Studios uploaded Bullseye and Missing Pieces onto YouTube.
Yeah, because I feel like we would get on, right? Or maybe it's like a cry for help.
Yeah, and along the way, we get hunted by Belzer. By Richard Belzer.
I'd be happy with that. I would be happy with that.
I love Richard Belzer. I'm a big Belzer fan. I think he's Belzerific. And but yeah, I hope, I sincerely hope that this, I'm going, when this podcast goes live, like Monday or Tuesday next week, I'm going to wait a few days and I'm going to come back to Trashcan Studios YouTube page, and I want to see that people have watched Missing Pieces, because I want people to watch Missing Pieces. Whatever you do, don't watch Bullseye.
Deep link or whatever to Trashcan Studios.
I will
see
do.
if you got a conversation going with these guys.
But
You know,
don't watch Bullseye. Don't watch Bullseye. Like, don't even watch Bullseye.
Well, I think we could have a Diner Trashcan partnership here, where Trashcan could post a movie, we could do a podcast on it. It could be, we could feed each other here, you know?
No, I don't want that. What I want is for you and me to film some.
I'm all about synergy.
Yeah, he has one subscriber and it's me. So let's not.
Is it you?
It's not
this
me.
The beginning of your mental breakdown? That you're secretly posting Michael Winner movies.
I would not be surprised, considering I'm willing to go on record as probably being only one of maybe 5 people in the entire universe who has heard of both Bullseye and Missing Pieces. I would not be surprised if, akin to Stephen King's Dark Half,
that's exactly what I was thinking.
I have a malevolent ex-twin demon who is uploading movies onto YouTube in order to freak me out. And it's not another real person. It's my darker half, as it were. And I just don't know that I'm doing it, and I'm suffering from massive blackouts, and I don't even know that I'm suffering from them. And I live in some sort of David Lynchian nightmare to always be followed around by the likes of Bullseye.
That would explain a few things currently happening in the world, and the fact that I am only, you know what I mean, a part as your like occasional special guest on your podcast in this mad demon realm that you've constructed. I don't know how to feel about that. I might need a little bit of time.
Well, not only that, Jim, but if you think about it, we haven't seen each other in person in like 9 months, 10 months. And you could be, because you are just now an image on a screen, you could be a manifestation.
That's true. This could all be happening. Yeah, that's a good point. I might not even be real.
I could have dreamt you up.
Yeah, God, imagine just being the dream of Crossy. it would explain a few things. So you know what? That doesn't make me feel too bad, actually.
So to wrap up this episode, and I'm so glad you felt the same way as I did about Missing Pieces, because I was dreading. I was absolutely dreading, because I had such a charming, nostalgic memory of this movie. And I was so dreading putting it on and being like, oh, fuck, it's awful, and my memory is bad, and whatever. But actually, it was such a relief to see that it was still like super charming in a real men, you know, Who's Harry Crumb type way. I think they're very good examples. The only thing I would say to wrap this up is, considering especially last week's episode, because we talked so much about Idol's intent desire to do theme songs for literally everything he appears in. And who can blame him? I'd want to sing my own theme song as well. The song in this, High Energy, sung by him and Wuhl, is hands down like the best of all the Idol movie tie-in songs that we've come up against.
It is. It's really good, especially since they're doing a duet. And it's not bad. It's got, it's sort of a shame that there's not a bit where, you know, at some point in the road trip, they crash the car and they have to walk. And while they're walking, they sing this song to keep their spirits up. Do you know what I mean? Like, actually sing it in a kind of a musical number. It just seems a shame, like, not to, you know?
Ooh, although it did have a weird splitting hairs use of the song, which was when they meet up with...
didn't it?
Lauren Hutton, and she's like running along the street or something. She runs past a store, and you can like hear part of the verse playing out of a store. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, like that was odd. That was like a splitting hairs choice. And also at the very end, when Robert Wuhl buys the New York Philharmonic, which is how it ends, the orchestral piece that he conducts is an orchestral version of this song. So. That's right. Even in a movie that he didn't originate, that he didn't write, that he didn't direct, that he didn't produce, Idol is still throwing his musical weight around and going up to Leonard Stern, who was like, oh God, what have I let myself in for? And being like, we've got this song, you've got to at least ham-fistedly include it in the movie as if it's coming out of a store. Why are we doing that, Eric? I don't know. We just have to. But it's only a verse.
If you want me to carry on making this movie, you'll have that song coming out of the store.
Ham-fistedly.
Residuals.
And then at the very end, we need Robert Wuhl to start conducting an orchestral version of the song. Really, why would... So wait a minute. What you're trying to say to us then, Eric, is that your characters of Wendell and Lou know that this song exists. They're aware of it. Like, how does that work? Like,
I guess that makes sense.
Did Lou and Wendell... Yeah, but it would make more sense. You know, at the beginning... Idol is going around singing for some reason like, today I'm gonna love everybody today, like he keeps singing that. It would make more sense that he was singing High Energy or whistling High Energy or singing like a couple of lines from High Energy, because then at least I'd go, oh okay, this is a song that the characters are aware of, or this is a song that, so that I could then at least make the stretch that maybe this is their favorite song for the friendship, and the version that we hear played over the road trip montage is like, you know, their karaoke version of like a famous song or whatever. Like I could at least make that leap. But having it just randomly appear in the midst of a chase scene doesn't make any sense at all. And then having him conduct it as if it's somehow their theme song, again, doesn't make any sense. But that small thing aside, it's the best song, and I absolutely like it. I've got high energy, you bring out the best in me. Like it's just a good old rollicking sing-along song, and it's so much better than everything we've come across so far. And I almost feel bad that it's the outrageously bad Eric Idle season, because this film is not outrageously bad at all. It's pleasantly joyful and on occasion very funny.
And on that bombshell, mate, I'm going to have to leave you, I'm afraid.
Yeah, that's fine, dude.
But I agree. It's no longer the outrageously bad Eric Idle season. Asterisk. This film is the asterisk on that season.
Asterisk, anything but missing pieces. And I did tweet Eric Idle and say to him, hey, I happen to love Missing Pieces. Please talk to me about it. And no response whatsoever. Robert Wuhl, on the other hand, was like, sure, I'll talk to... And again, bringing up the whole fact, Robert Wuhl is the true optimist and the realist, and Idle is...
I think that's fair, mate.
Negative.
I think that's fair.
All the best. Thanks so much for doing this. Take care of yourself. Don't work too hard, and have a nice weekend.
Cheers, man. You too. Take care, man. Fun as always.
Trouble seems to follow us wherever we go when we're out of a jam. Look out! Calamity! Your faith needs restoring.
You're a bloody optimist.
But never boring. Just when others say die, we kick it into high. 'Cause we've got high energy. You bring out the beast in me.
You're a pain that never ceases.
You fill in the missing pieces.
Woo!
My energy is an infinite supply. Well, it's chemistry when it's you plus me. We got high ener, singing like a tenor.